title Anchorwoman did not exist until my next guest became one of the nation's first. Also happens to be the title of her new autobiography. She's best known as the anchor for the Saturday edition of NBC Nightly News and daily NBC News Update. Here's Jessica Savitch.
Hello, Mike.
So nice to see you.
It's good to see you, too.
What is that commercial? You've gone a long way, baby.
Thank you very much.
When I last saw you, you were trudging around KYW in Philadelphia.
I was your opening act, and you didn't even know it.
I didn't even know it. I read that in the book.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was Mike's opening act. What it was everybody... They sold out every day. People just waited 2 years for tickets to the Mike Douglas show. Unfortunately, all of the women would use the restroom around 5 o'clock when I was trying to get ready to go on the air to anchor the news, so I used to have to elbow my way to the front.
I've seen that lady before. There you were in front of the mirror.
I was a warm-up.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm so pleased with what's happened. It wasn't easy, though. I read this. It was very difficult for you.
There have been a lot of changes. First of all, anybody that writes an autobiographical work at 34 would be presumptuous.
Yeah, it is.
It's not really an autobiography. What it is a journey of a career. Where we were when I started out, when women were told, you can't have this job because you're female, your voice isn't authoritative, you can't work late hours, women don't want to watch other women on television. The stages we went through when they took women off the beauty contest runway and said, here, now you're an anchor, read the news, to where we are now, which is when we're finally beginning to be evaluated in terms of whether we can do the job or not.
Yeah, but there are several things that stayed in my mind. I did not know that when you became a hit in Philadelphia, that the opposing stations, said you'll love this, looked for a young lady that looked, and one of the prerequisites was they must look like Jessica Savitch. It didn't matter if they could talk, they had to look like Jessica Savitch.
It was flattering, but what it meant was that if a man did well on television, in any job, whether it was entertainment or news, if the man did well, they said, gee, he's a real talent. If a woman did well, it must be because of the way she looks. So we'll get somebody and dress him up that way.
I agree with you because I constantly hear people say things negative things about Barbra Streisand. And all she does when she does a picture is what any man, they'd say, what a gifted, what a talented man. Look at the way he can direct, he can write, he can do. But because she's a woman, for some reason.
It's one of the reasons why I wrote Anchorwoman. The roles are changing. It's tough to be feminine and authoritative. If a man is aggressive journalist, means he's terrific. If a woman is an aggressive journalist, what do you usually think of? It's not terrific. You've got to be strong and vulnerable at the same time, feminine and authoritative. It's tough. Roles are changing, and we're on the cutting edge of the change.
I love what the little child said to you. You were appearing in front of a class, and this little girl said, you weren't sure that the kids would know because they were so young what you did.
Right.
Correct?
It was called The End of the One-Room Schoolhouse in Nebraska, and I went to do a story for NBC Magazine. And the teacher said, this is Jessica Savitch. She is an anchorwoman. Do you know what an anchorwoman does? And everybody puzzles. The little kid raises her hand and she says, I think that's when you get paid a lot of money to get dressed up and read all of them words right on the television.
Isn't that... television.
Television. Exactly right. But she's right. That's what a lot of women think.
Sure.
Going into the business. It was to dispel that myth that I wrote Anchorwoman.
This little girl someday will be looking for your job, too.
Probably today. She's probably out there now. But there's more to it than that. It looks glossy, just like the show out here looks glossy and perfect, and everything goes just fine, and you have interesting guests like Sid. It looks excellent. But what about all the preparation? What about all the work? What about getting ready? What about all that goes on in the control room and the constant pressure? That's not readily apparent. It's the same with news. There are a lot of myths to be dispelled. Our industry has changed rapidly. My career and some of the other women in the front line, those careers have paralleled the change.
But anchor people, around the country have become celebrities, not unlike stars like Sid Caesar. Now, the network's relying too much these days on looks.
I don't think so.
Rather than appeal and journalism?
I don't think so. There are two dimensions. Looks like there are two dimensions in television, right? But there's a third dimension. And the third dimension is whether you know what you're talking about, whether you've done your homework. You can look terrific and you can sound terrific. That's great. But if you don't know what you're talking about, if you're not a good journalist, eventually that comes across.
Was the time in your book when you said, now I'm a journalist?
Yeah.
Describe that time to me.
The time that I felt that I finally became a journalist was in Philadelphia, as a matter of fact, doing a documentary, a series, one of the first done on the subject of rape, where I saw a story that I did then viewed in legislatures in Harrisburg, in Trenton, and in Dover. And it became a catalyst for change. In other words, they viewed the series and they said, gee, we really need to change laws with regard to prosecution of rapists and treatment of rape victims. Anytime you can see a story directly translated into positive societal change, you can say, look, Ma, I'm a journalist.
That's wonderful. I got to ask you about the one thing that stayed in my mind, the time you were very ill, and the guy called you up at home and said, Jess, it's ratings time.
Yep. Well,
I
you were
want
at
you
the
to
station,
substantiate
Mike.
that. Wait till you hear this, Sid.
It's the truth. Ratings are important in stations. First of all, News Now sets the image for the station.
And news is where they make all the dollars,
that's right.
too.
It's often the only locally originated program. So it was ratings, and I had intestinal flu, and I said, gee, I'm not going to be in. And they said, gee, we're in ratings, you have to come in. And I said, well, it's bad flu, like sick flu.
Throwing up every half hour.
Throwing up, sick. So I got called every half hour, like, how are you feeling? Are you going to be able to make it? Finally, they got panicked, and they said, look, you don't have to write the news. You can come in. And if you're going to be sick, we've put a trash bucket under your desk. Do you think you can make it to the commercial break? That's how important ratings are.
Yeah, that was our station in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
We'll be back with Jessica Savitch right after this. Kind of shelved this for a while.
I started writing Anchorwoman really 15 years ago when I started in the business as a disc jockey. And I kept notes and clippings and didn't really expect to write the book until I was much older than 34 years old. But the industry changed rapidly and roles for women changed, and so I started writing the book. And when my husband died, I put the book aside for a while. But it, like my work, proved a panacea. It's always been something that I love. Broadcasting's always been something I love.
It was a terrible period in your lifetime, too.
No more terrible, though, Mike, than the periods of time that just about everybody goes through. Everybody in life has a bag of bearable sorrows that they take with them.
Yeah.
And they have a lot to overcome. First, you either decide whether you're going to go on or not go on, and then whether you're going to exist or prevail. Taking a shot at prevailing, went back and wrote Anchorwoman, continued to write Anchorwoman.
But what happened? Can you tell us a little about that? That tragic period in your life?
My husband became ill. It's a matter of public record. My husband became ill and ended his life in August of 1981. And the period thereafter was, as I say, no more difficult than that which is faced by just about everybody at some point in their life when they lose someone who's close to them. It's just that we do our jobs on the public airwaves, and so what we do, triumphs and tragedies, are visible, and how we deal with them, those triumphs and tragedies, are part of public awareness.
I think it was lovely how some of your fans responded to that. Some of the things they sent you was very, very nice.
They couldn't have been more kind, more supportive, and it was for that reason that you figure, well, there must be some meaning to it all after all, and you go on.
Mm-hmm. It's changed. It's been changing, and this man that I work for, Ted Turner, is responsible for a good many of the changes.
Yes.
CNN.
Yes.
More and more, there's more news on television than ever before. And since he started with the 24-hour news, all the networks have...
But he wouldn't have started doing that if there hadn't been a market for it.
Of course.
If it hadn't been that television viewers are no longer, nor should they be considered, the 14-year-old mentality. People don't understand when something happens over in Iran that affects them at the gas pumps. They know. There's a need, more of a need to know.
The proof of that is 60 Minutes being number one. It's been out for years and never gathered any strength until lately, and now the audiences are so hip. I know that when I make appearances, how smart audiences are. They know, They know all of the little expressions that we use. They know what sitcoms
the United
are.
States is in showbiz.
That's right. And everyone everyone out there is a critic.
Anytime somebody is standing up and somebody else is sitting down, the one standing up's in showbiz, right?
That's right.
That's it. You've got to be able. Well, news is a commodity.
Also, remember our old boss Don McGannon?
Yes.
He started all that really when you want to
think. Primetime access.
When he said primetime access, and when he said I'm going to turn such and such a station to all news, I think it was WINS in New York, KFWB here, Paul Westinghouse station. Everybody went, 24-hour news. In fact, I said, are you serious? There'll be a lot of repetition. He said, no, there's an audience for that. And they'll turn that radio on. He was right.
That rapidly changing technology means that 34, you can have a career that gives you enough information to put in a book like Anchorwoman. It means it gives you enough of an opportunity to do new things. I have an opportunity to do something new for PBS.
Oh, tell about that. That's exciting.
It's a documentary series called Frontline. I was very fortunate that NBC has given me a partial leave of absence, meaning I'll continue to do NBC's weekend newscast.
They're not thrilled about it, though, are they?
Well, they said you got to come back every weekend and do the news, but they're giving me a chance to do some investigative reporting. This series premieres Monday, January 17th on PBS. It's an hour-long documentary per week.
Are you into it already?
Yes, we're already researching and being shot by a consortium of some of the best producers in the business. David Fanning, who came up with the series World and did Death of a Princess. Irv Drasnin, who did The Guns of Autumn.
You're doing Sid Caesar's takes, Jessica.
I know. I tell you, you got to get chairs like this, that are better.
No, that's a good take,
You also don't get the ones that swivel, like we used to have in Philadelphia, which is fortunate. We've knocked Sid off.
Yes.
This series is, I think, one that is going to go behind the headlines. I know it's going to go behind the headlines. Television network news gives you a very good headline service. They give you good documentaries.
But they do not deal in depth.
They cannot be set up to deal in depth. This is like an electronic Chautauqua-type tent, where we say, this is what you're going to see. You see the documentary, and at the end you bring in the protagonist and the antagonist and talk about it.
This is called being out of time. Anchor Jessica Savitch.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
And Sid, thank you.
My pleasure.
Back. We'll do
Gonna try.
We'll do another one of these together, all of us.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd love it.
And tomorrow's guest, lovely actress Polly Bergen, and David Lander from Laverne and Shirley, whom you recognize as Swiggy, also the controversial co-author of the G-Spot, Beverly Whipple, and nationally known radio personality, Dr. Demento. Good night.